Why can a company charge some of the highest prices in one of the most competitive industries on Earth, while many of its rivals are forced into endless discount campaigns just to stay relevant? At first glance, that should not be possible. The smartphone industry has spent more than a decade teaching consumers to expect better specifications at lower prices. Every year, manufacturers compete with larger displays, faster processors, better cameras, and aggressive promotions. Seasonal discounts, flash sales, trade incentives, and price cuts have become almost routine. The common assumption is straightforward. If two products perform similar tasks, the cheaper one should eventually win. That logic explains why price wars have become one of the defining characteristics of consumer electronics. Yet one company seems to operate by an entirely different set of rules. Apple rarely responds to competitors by lowering the official price of its flagship products. Instead, new iPhone models often launch at premium prices and remain there throughout most of their product cycle. Despite this approach, customers continue to line up for new releases, and the company continues to generate extraordinary financial results. According to Apple's fiscal year 2025 annual report, total revenue reached approximately $416 billion, an increase of 6% from the previous year. Even more interesting, iPhone revenue grew to about $209 billion, with Apple stating that the increase was driven primarily by its Pro models, which are also its most expensive smartphones. That creates a fascinating contradiction. If higher prices naturally reduce demand, why are some of Apple's most expensive products contributing to revenue growth instead of slowing it down? Perhaps the answer is simply brand loyalty. After all, Apple is one of the most valuable brands in the world. Many people assume customers are willing to pay more because they admire the logo, enjoy the design, or see the products as status symbols. There is certainly some truth in that explanation, but it is also incomplete. Brand reputation alone cannot consistently support premium pricing for decades across multiple generations of products, while competitors with strong global brands continue fighting over discounts. Something deeper must be happening beneath the surface. There is another detail that makes this puzzle even more interesting. Apple is not completely ignoring affordability. The company actively offers trade-in programs, installment payment options, and carrier financing in many markets. Customers can reduce their immediate out-of-pocket cost without Apple dramatically changing the official retail price of the newest devices. That raises an important question. If Apple is helping customers spend less upfront, why does it still protect its premium pricing so carefully? Is the company refusing to compete on price? Or is it competing in a completely different way? To answer that question, we have to stop looking at the iPhone as a standalone product. Because if customers are not actually comparing one phone against another, then perhaps the entire assumption behind smartphone pricing needs to be reconsidered. The key to understanding Apple's pricing strategy is to stop looking at the company as a smartphone manufacturer that happens to sell other products. Apple has spent years building something much larger than a collection of devices. Today, an iPhone connects naturally with a Mac and iPad, an Apple Watch, AirPods, Apple Television, iCloud, the App Store, Apple Music, Apple Pay, and a growing portfolio of digital services. Features such as AirDrop handoff, universal clipboard, continuity camera, and automatic synchronization across devices are designed so that each product becomes more useful when another Apple product is added. In other words, the value of one device increases because of the existence of the others. That changes the economics of the purchase in a subtle but important way. Imagine buying a smartphone from most manufacturers. Your decision is largely evaluated on the hardware itself. You compare the display, processor, camera, battery life, storage, and price. If another company offers similar specifications for less money, switching becomes relatively easy. Apple gradually changes that comparison. The company encourages customers to evaluate the experience of using multiple devices together rather than judging each product independently. A photograph taken on an iPhone instantly appears on a Mac. A document copied on one device can be pasted on another. A phone call can be answered from a laptop. Messages remain synchronized across every screen. None of these individual features is revolutionary on its own, but together they reduce friction throughout everyday life. This is why Apple's ecosystem matters. The ecosystem is not simply a collection of products. It is a system in which every additional purchase increases the usefulness of previous purchases. Apple's own disclosures illustrate the scale of this strategy. The company has reported more than 2 billion active devices worldwide. That installed base represents an enormous network of customers already participating in Apple's software services and hardware ecosystem. For someone who already owns an iPhone, adding an Apple Watch creates new capabilities. Buying a Mac unlocks additional continuity features. Subscribing to iCloud simplifies synchronization across every device. Each new product strengthens the overall experience rather than replacing it. That is a very different business model from selling isolated hardware. It also changes how customers evaluate price. Instead of asking whether one phone has a better camera than another, many existing Apple users begin asking a different question. How well will this new device fit into everything I already use? That shift in perspective becomes increasingly important because Apple has deliberately kept its product lineup relatively focused, rather than flooding the market with dozens of flagship models competing against one another. The company typically offers a limited range of products with clear positioning. Customers can choose between different storage capacities, standard or Pro versions, or previous generation models, but they remain inside the same ecosystem. The strategy extends beyond hardware. Services have become an increasingly important part of Apple's business. iCloud, Apple Music, Apple Television plus AppleCare, App Store purchases, and other digital offerings continue generating revenue long after the original device has been sold. In its fiscal year 2025 annual report, Apple reported service revenue of more than $109 billion United States dollars, growing 14% year-over-year, while the services segment generated a gross margin exceeding 75%. Those numbers suggest that the first purchase may not be the end of the customer relationship. It may simply be the beginning. And that observation sets up an even more important question. If every additional product makes the ecosystem more valuable, how exactly does Apple use pricing to strengthen that entire system rather than simply maximize the sale of a single device? The turning point appears when Apple's pricing strategy is examined alongside the economics of its entire business, instead of the price tag attached to a single iPhone. Most manufacturers earn the majority of their value at the moment a device is sold. Apple does not. Selling an iPhone is certainly important, but it also creates an opportunity for years of future purchases, subscriptions, software spending, accessory sales, and device upgrades. That changes the objective of pricing. Instead of asking how much profit can be extracted from one transaction, Apple can ask a different question. How can each new device strengthen a customer relationship that continues generating value long after the original purchase? The company's financial results illustrate this shift. According to Apple's fiscal year 2025 annual report, services generated more than $109 billion United States dollars in revenue, growing 14% compared with the previous year. More importantly, the gross margin of the services segment reached approximately 75%, while the products segment generated a gross margin of roughly 37%. Those numbers reveal an important pattern. A customer who remains inside Apple's ecosystem becomes increasingly valuable over time. That changes the role of the iPhone itself. Rather than functioning only as a hardware product, the iPhone becomes the primary gateway into a broader commercial ecosystem. This also explains another decision that often receives less attention than headline product launches. Apple consistently expands its premium lineup instead of aggressively lowering prices across the board. During fiscal year 2025, the company specifically reported that iPhone revenue growth was driven primarily by its Pro models. Customers were not simply buying more phones. A meaningful portion of growth came from choosing more expensive versions. From a traditional pricing perspective, this seems counterintuitive. If customers are highly sensitive to price, introducing higher-priced models should reduce demand. Instead, Apple has repeatedly demonstrated that a significant group of customers is willing to move upward within the product range. The company reinforces that movement by creating clear differences between product tiers. Better camera systems, improved displays, premium materials, additional performance, exclusive features, And larger storage capacities provide reasons for customers to justify paying more rather than simply replacing an older device with the cheapest available option. At the same time, Apple carefully reduces the psychological barrier created by a premium price. Rather than lowering the official retail price of a new flagship model, the company offers multiple ways to reduce the immediate financial burden. Trade-in programs allow existing devices to offset part of the purchase price. Installment financing spreads payments over many months. Carrier partnerships frequently provide promotional credits tied to long-term service agreements. These programs change the customer's experience without fundamentally changing the product's positioning. Instead of focusing on the full purchase price, many buyers evaluate the monthly payment, the trade-in value of their previous device, or the difference they need to pay after promotional incentives. This distinction matters. Apple is making the purchase easier without publicly redefining the value of the product itself. Viewed together, these decisions form a coherent strategy. Premium models increase the average value of each transaction. Services increase the lifetime value of every customer. Financing and trade-in programs reduce purchasing friction. The ecosystem increases the usefulness of every additional product. None of these elements works independently. Each reinforces the others. That is why Apple's pricing strategy cannot be understood by looking only at the number printed on the box. The more interesting question is not why Apple keeps charging premium prices. It is why lowering those prices might actually weaken the very system that makes customers willing to pay them in the first place. The most common way to interpret Apple's success is to say that the company can charge premium prices because it has a powerful brand. That explanation is appealing because it is simple. It is also incomplete. A strong brand may persuade someone to buy an expensive product once. It cannot by itself persuade millions of customers to return repeatedly, expand into additional product categories, subscribe to digital services, and remain loyal for years while less expensive alternatives continue to improve. The more convincing explanation emerges when pricing is viewed as part of the entire business system rather than as an isolated commercial decision. From that perspective, reducing prices is not automatically beneficial. In fact, for a company built around premium positioning, frequent price reductions can gradually weaken the very mechanisms that create long-term competitive advantage. The first reason is perception. Price is not only an exchange of money, it is also information. Consumers often use price as one signal when evaluating quality, reliability, exclusivity, and expected performance, especially in categories where technical differences are difficult to judge before purchase. Marketing and consumer behavior research has repeatedly shown that price can influence perceived quality under many purchasing conditions. For Apple, the official retail price communicates that its newest products belong in the premium segment. If flagship prices were repeatedly discounted, customers could begin questioning whether the original price truly reflected the value of the product or whether waiting for the next promotion would always be the smarter decision. Over time, the reference price itself would become less credible. The second reason involves customer behavior. Every discount teaches consumers something. If promotions become predictable, buyers learn that patience is rewarded. Instead of purchasing when they actually need a device, many begin waiting for the next sale. This behavior is common across industries where heavy discounting becomes routine. As more customers delay purchases, companies often respond with even larger promotions to recover demand. Eventually, discounts stop being exceptional events and become expected pricing. Apple has generally avoided creating that cycle for its flagship products. Instead of lowering the list price, the company usually preserves it while providing other mechanisms that reduce purchasing friction. Trade-in credits reward existing ownership rather than permanently reducing the product's value. Installment financing changes cash flow without changing the official price. Carrier incentives are frequently funded through partnerships instead of broad reductions in Apple's published pricing. These approaches make ownership more accessible while preserving the premium reference point. The third reason becomes visible only after looking at the ecosystem itself. Leaving Apple is not simply a matter of replacing one smartphone with another. Many customers have accumulated years of photographs stored in iCloud, purchased applications, synchronized messages, passwords, accessories such as AirPods and Apple Watch, and workflows built around features like AirDrop handoff, universal clipboard, and continuity. Replacing a single device may therefore require rebuilding habits that have developed over many years. The cost of switching is not measured only in dollars. It also includes time, convenience, learning, compatibility, and the temporary loss of familiar routines. That does not mean customers cannot leave Apple's ecosystem. Many do. But it does mean the purchasing decision involves more than comparing the specifications and prices of two smartphones displayed on the same store shelf. Viewed together, these elements reveal something important. Apple is not protecting premium prices because it ignores competition. The company is protecting them because the price itself supports a broader system. The ecosystem increases the value customers receive after purchase. The premium position reinforces expectations before purchase. And the purchasing experience removes obstacles without reducing the symbolic value attached to the product. Under those conditions, lowering the official price would not simply reduce revenue per device. It could also weaken the signals and relationships that help sustain the entire ecosystem over the long term. Seen from the outside, Apple's pricing strategy appears to be a story about premium branding. Seen from the inside, it is something much more fundamental. The company has spent decades building a business in which price, products, software, services, financing, and customer experience reinforce one another instead of working independently. That is why looking at the price of an iPhone alone can lead to the wrong conclusion. The official retail price is only one component of a much larger economic system. The financial results support this interpretation. During fiscal year 2025, Apple generated approximately $416 billion in total revenue. iPhone revenue increased, driven primarily by the Pro lineup, while services surpassed $109 billion and achieved a gross margin of more than 75%. Those figures do not describe a company relying on a single expensive product. They describe a company that continues creating value long after the initial purchase. Each additional device strengthens the ecosystem. Each service deepens customer engagement. Each upgrade extends the relationship. And each satisfied customer increases the probability of future purchases across multiple categories. In that environment, pricing serves a very different purpose. It is not simply a way to recover manufacturing costs or maximize profit on one transaction. It becomes a strategic tool that protects the entire structure surrounding the product. This is why Apple can simultaneously make ownership easier through trade-in programs, financing options, and carrier partnerships while preserving premium list prices. The company reduces purchasing friction without weakening the price signal that supports its long-term positioning. Those two goals may appear contradictory. In reality, they complement each other. Making a premium product easier to purchase is very different from making it appear less valuable. That distinction explains why competitors often struggle when they attempt to copy Apple's pricing. A premium price cannot create a premium business by itself. Without an ecosystem that continuously adds value, without services that extend customer relationships, and without products that work together in meaningful ways, a higher price quickly becomes difficult to defend. Customers may tolerate paying more once. They are far less likely to do so repeatedly unless every interaction reinforces the original decision. Apple has gradually built that reinforcement into nearly every stage of the customer journey. The purchase begins with hardware. It expands through software. It grows through services. It becomes stronger as additional devices are added. Over time, the value customers perceive no longer comes from one product in isolation, but from the entire experience surrounding it. That changes the way premium pricing should be understood. The common assumption is that companies earn the right to charge high prices because they already have a strong competitive advantage. Apple suggests the relationship can also work in the opposite direction. When a company has created enough genuine value through its product's ecosystem and customer relationships, maintaining premium prices can become part of the strategy that preserves and strengthens that competitive advantage. The real question then is not why Apple refuses to join price wars. It is whether competing on price was ever the game Apple was trying to win in the first place.